22, 20. स एव भूयो निजवीर्यचोदिताम् स्वजीवमायां प्रकृतिं सुसृक्षतिम् अनामरूपात्मनिरूपनाम्नि विदित्समानोऽनुससार शास्त्रकृत्. Translation.
Prabhuji, you can share the screen as well when reading the words. That way people can also repeat after if they want to.
Okay.
Or I can share for you if you want.
Why do you share?
Yeah.
It will be better. So, Prabhu, I'll just chant the verse and read the translations.
Yes.
Because we just want to save a little time, right? So only I will chant. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So translation: the personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the entities, placed them under the guidance of material nature by his own potency. By his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. We'll come to the purport later. Text number 23. Sava ayam yat padamatra suryo jitendriya nirjita matarishmanaha pashyanti bhaktyut kalitamalaatmana nanvesha sattvam parimarshtumarhati. Translation. Here is the same Supreme Personality of Godhead whose transcendental form is experienced by the great devotees who are completely cleansed of material consciousness by dint of rigid devotional service, full control of life in the senses. And that is the only way to purify existence. Text number 24. Sava ayam sakhya anugita satkatho vedeshu guhyeshu cha guhyavadibhi ya eka isho jagatatma leelaya srujatyavatyatina tatra sajjate. Translation. Oh dear friends, here is that very personality of Godhead whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. It is he only who creates, maintains, and annihilates the material world, and yet remains unaffected. Hare Krishna. Om Agyantimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Yam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadagamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitantam Sarivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijnasetam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Chaitanya Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimade Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitame. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranami Hari Priya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Okay. So these verses in this particular chapter, from verse number 20, it's basically the discussion of the ladies who are on the rooftops of the palaces of Hastinapur. So while Lord Krishna was departing from Hastinapur, so finally he was departing, because he started and then Kunti Maharani prayed to him. He stayed back for a few days and now he's finally going. So these ladies basically they are talking about Krishna, right? Now, Srila Prabhupada describes that anything about Krishna is very sweet. Krishna is sweet from all sides, just like a laddu. You bite it from anywhere, it is sweet, right? So Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, his pastimes in Mathura, his pastimes on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, they are of the same spiritual quality. One cannot make any distinction that, okay, Lord Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan are higher and the other pastimes are lower. No. So from a perspective of darshan, right, there is absolutely no difference. But from a perspective of rasa, there is a little difference, right? And this differences of this rasa at our level, what can we do? We can't really, comment on such things. So these ladies, you just imagine the situation. They are observing Krishna passing by and they are actually talking about him. Right now, if you we all know that Krishna is a person, God is a person. And Krishna as a person, he likes to hear about him, right? When he is glorified, when people talk about him, people talk about his glories, his activities, his pastimes. So Krishna really likes that when his devotees talk about him, especially when the talk is very intimate, right? As Gaurang Prabhu was, describing, like how, there is awe and reverence and then there is intimacy. Both cannot exist simultaneously, right? So Krishna specifically likes to hear those things that are very intimate and very spontaneous, right? Even Lord Nrsimhadev, he, in his incarnation, Lord Nrsimhadev, when he's giving benedictions to Prahlad, he mentions that I like intimate talk. The Vedas, glorify me with so much of awe and reverence, but I prefer if, somebody talks intimately. And then there are so many examples in the scriptures, right, of how Krishna appreciates very intimate talk, very straightforward talk, right? Sometimes in a relationship, when there is just a lot of respect, like, I don't know, I am from North India, right? So when we converse in Hindi, so we can address a person with आप कैसे हैं, right? आप आइए बैठिए, right? और we can say तुम, कि तुम कैसे हो, तुम अंदर आ जाओ, तुम बैठो, तुम खाओ. And then another degree which is तू, कह रहे तू आ जा, बैठ, right? Now if you see between these three levels, the aap level is very, very formal, a lot of respect and everything. And the tu level is very completely informal. Like if you think about, friends, probably with our friends, we would not talk aap, ke, "Arey, aap kaise ho?" like the real close friends, they will always talk to each other as "Kare tu kya kar raha hai yaar? What's happening?" Right? Very, it's that conversation is not restricted to a lot of flowery language, right? It's very straightforward. So Krishna especially likes that conversation, right? Which is very straight. Of course, we cannot imitate, but Krishna really likes that. So I'll tell a story about this, and then we'll actually go into the subject matter. So there is a temple in Vrindavan called Rasika Bihari Temple. So it's a very old temple, and over there, the priest there was very. He had a very friendly relationship with the deity. So one time he was basically tying a turban to the Lord, Thakurji. He was tying a turban, and after he would tie the turban and he would do something else. So Krishna would shake his head and he would, make the turban fall. So it happened once. He again put it patiently. As soon as he would go, he would again shake him. So it happened for 9 times, right? And this pujari became very upset because he was the only pujari, and practical consideration is there, right? Like Mother Yashoda, when she was feeding milk, there was a practical consideration that okay, there is milk on the stove that she needs to take off. So this pujari also had practical considerations. So he became very upset with the Lord. And he actually swore. He said, Sale, agar mera style pasand nahi hai to khud bando na. Right? He was telling that you Krishna, if you don't like my style of pagdi, of turban, then why don't you put yourself? Every time you are shaking and falling off. That abhi मैं पहनाता हूँ, अभी अगर वापस गिराया तो मैं नहीं पहनाऊंगा. So he basically threatened Krishna, and then he put the turban, and then Thakurji didn't do anything. He accepted, right? so see, Krishna wants to tease his devotees sometimes, and bring out that aspect of spontaneity, and aspect of little anger and man. And we know this pastimes between the gopis and Krishna. There are so many pastimes because the experience of love is the highest when there is a little tension in the relationship, right? So there are so many examples like that in the scriptures. So Krishna, we should understand that he is a person and he likes when we speak about him, when we address him, right? Whenever we go to the in front of deities, and when we actually talk to the deities, you may not talk actually loudly, but when you go and talk to the deities, Krishna really cherishes that actually. In the third canto, when Kapil Dev is explaining to Devati the devotional service, Lord Kapil Dev specifically mentions that when the devotees, when they come to me and when they actually ask me something to do, that oh my Lord, I want this, I want that, please help me, like that. So when they ask me something or when they pray, that I like to do, I like to give them when they approach me like that. Right. So from this, conversation of these ladies of the Kuru dynasty, it's a very important aspect to understand that Krishna is an attention seeker. He likes to be, a center of attraction. So when devotees talk about him, Krishna is very happy. Right. So in text number 22, very nicely, the ladies are explaining. Now you can imagine these are ladies who are basically handling household chores. They are handling, kids, and you may never expect these ladies to basically, they don't go to the Gurukul, right? When these are kids. Usually only the boys go to the Gurukul. So whatever they study at home. But because these ladies were completely absorbed in Krishna, so Lord Krishna blessed them with understanding, right? He blessed them in understanding. So much so that these ladies are actually, you see what kind of philosophy they are speaking, right? So what they are saying is the personality of Godhead, again desiring to give names and forms to his parts and parcels, the living entities, placed them under the guidance of material nature. By his own potency, material nature is empowered to recreate. Now they are actually talking a very philosophical aspect, right? So here all the living entities are addressed as anam, right? So the living entity, he is pure spirit. So from a material perspective, if we think about, see, vastu, right, when we talk about reality, right, so we say vastavik when we address reality in Sanskrit. So this vastavik word reality comes from the word real, which is vastu. So there is vastav vastu, real thing, and then there's avastav vastu, right? So Krishna and the living entities, they are actually real thing. They are the actual vastav vastu. Now, when the living entities, they are subject to this material atmosphere, right, which is like a dream. So what happens is something that is real, it takes up a unreal name or form, right? So the living entity, although it is anam without mundane designation, but it accepts rupa and nam. Krishna gives them the rupa and nam, right? Forms and names. Although the living entity is without any material form and name, but Krishna gives them a material form and name because all these living entities, they are like in their sleeping. The previous verse described that how they are, in their suspended state of consciousness, right? They are in a dream state. So to activate them, to basically purify them, the Lord, again wakes them up. He again, starts the whole wheel of, cycle of creation, maintenance, dissolution, right? So the whole purpose of this whole game, whole drama is that so the living entity basically purifies themselves from this avastav nam, avastav roop, and they basically attend to their own constitutional position. Hmm? So you can imagine they are talking about such a high concept, philosophical aspect, right? These ladies about Krishna, right? And yeah, Prabhupada very nicely describes about, what there are two kinds of living entities, where Nitya Mukta and Nitya Baddha. Now, one can actually question, I will not go into the details, you all, are doing Bhakti Vaibhav, so you might already be knowing. So the Nitya Muktas are described as those who are eternally liberated. Nitya Baddhas are described as eternally, conditioned. Now, how can then be eternal condition? Isn't it something to be think about? How did Krishna make us? How can I be eternally conditioned? Because the fact that we are in the material world, that means we are not Nitya Mukta. We are Nitya Baddha. So there is actually the understanding is different here. Nitya Baddha means the living entities, they are those living entities who have this inclination of becoming conditioned. Right? They are inclined to become conditioned. Whereas the Nitya Mukta living entities, they never are inclined to basically leave Krishna. Right? So that is the distinction. So that's uh, describing this verses describing how living entities are accepting this roop and nam given by the Lord. Now, in text number 23, the ladies of Hastinapur are describing about the transcendental attributes of the Lord, right? So what they are saying, Sava ayam yat padamatra surayo. So they are saying that this Lord is the same Lord who is basically glorified. Who is glorifying them? Who is glorifying the Lord? Surayo. Surayo means the purified, the great devotees, right? And what is the quality of these devotees? They are Jitendriya. They have completely conquered their senses. And they are Nirjita Matvarishwan. their senses are completely controlled and their life is also completely controlled. Hmm? So these devotees, such devotees, basically they can experience the transcendental form of Lord. How, why they can experience? Because they are completely cleansed. Now, here again, these devotees are talking about such a great philosophical concept. They are saying Krishna is full of form, quality, pastimes, etc. Right? And then the whole world practically is saying that Lord is formless, right? God is formless. God is nature. God is love. God is light, right? They say nirvishesha, shunyavad. Krishna is nirguna, correct? So these concepts actually of the Lord being formless, without any qualities, without any emotion, this that, they are actually coming from a very ignorant viewpoint, right? If a person analyzes, nothing is formless actually. Everything has a form, right? Even if let's say there is a bacteria, the bacteria is very small, and if the bacteria is put in a big balloon, right? So the bacteria may think, everything is formless here, because the bacteria, he doesn't know that this is just a small balloon, and that formlessness is still under this balloon, which has a form, right? So all these uh, those people who are meditating and they are trying to realize the formless aspect of the Lord, they are focusing on some form. They don't know actually the formlessness is subordinate to the form, right? It is always subordinate to the form. Like for example, darkness doesn't exist on its own. Light is there, and when you turn away from the light, you experience darkness. It's not that darkness is existing and when you turn away from darkness there will be light. It's a complete wrong logic. It is not scientific, it is not logical. So therefore anything, when you negate something, the only reason something can be negated is because it is existing, right? Because something is existing, you can negate it. If something is not existing, you can't do anything, correct? If you don't have $10 with you, how can you spend it? So when the Mayavadis and all, they talk about the Lord being formless, they are saying that I have nothing but I'm spending money. That's what they're telling. But that's not the case. So there is one story about this. I had heard in a class uh, that how this impersonal thing is basically a preaching. It doesn't actually exist. It's just preaching. And when you repeat a lie a lot of times, it starts sounding as truth. Oh, probably it is truth, right? So one time, His Holiness Radha Govind Maharaj, he was going probably from India to some Western country. So he had a stopover for a long time in Dubai. So he was wearing his sannyas clothes and everything, and he was chanting at the airport. So this airport manager, he was sitting in his cabin and he called Maharaj. And he asked Maharaj, so you are Hindu? So Maharaj said, yes, I am Hindu. And then he said, oh, that means you worship idols. So Maharaj said, no, we don't worship idols. We worship the form of the Lord, which is authorized in the Vedas. Like that Maharaj was explaining him. So while Maharaj was explaining, their time for namaz started. So this person, He said, excuse me, no, I'll just offer my namaz and come. Maharaj said, okay. So he came, he went there and he came back. So Maharaj asked him, so you offered namaz? He said, yes. So what is namaz? You pray something? Yes, we pray. So then Maharaj asked, so whom do you pray? So he said, we pray to Allah. So he said, if you are praying to Allah, that means He is hearing. So does He hear your prayer? He said, absolutely, He's the supreme. He hears whatever I say. So Maharaj said, that means He has ears. So this person started thinking, yes, He has ears. So then Maharaj says, so okay, if He can understand your prayers and if He can listen, so He can also give you some benediction, right? So he said, yeah, he can, give benediction. So then, Maharaj said, okay, that means he has a mouth also. And then, okay, if a person has ears and mouths, and if he has to, do something for his worshipper, then he should have hands and everything. So this person started really thinking. So then Maharaj explained him how God is not formless. Allah is not formless. He has a hand, He has a mouth, He has a ear, He has eyes. He is like a person, but He is a supreme person. So this person became so ecstatic actually, became so grateful. He said that in my whole life, I have never heard such clear explanation about Allah. And so he was really appreciating. And then Maharaj asked him, what is the time? So he said, oh, you don't have a watch? Maharaj said, no, I don't have a watch. So he basically went in the airport and he went to a store and he bought a very expensive watch and gifted to Maharaj. So the point is, Kṛṣṇa is Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. Right? He is one without a second. He is infallible. He is without beginning or the end. And he is unlimited forms. And all his forms have this quality of Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. Right? This is what these ladies are discussing, that how Kṛṣṇa's form is perceived by purified state. Now, when we have to be grateful to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada gave us the highest conception, right? Only in a purified state you can experience the form of the Lord. But Srila Prabhupada, because of the mercy of the Acharyas, what he did was, and like all previous Acharyas, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, everybody, but in a big way, our Srila Prabhupada, he basically gave us deities. And what beautiful deity service is going on, right, in Seattle. You can go, Radhananda Madhav, Sitaram Lakshman, Gaur-Nitaya, they are looking so beautiful, right? And those forms of the Lord are basically authorized forms of the Lord, right? It is not somebody's imagination or somebody's concoction. Now, without being purified, we are being exposed to that, right? So what Prabhupada is telling, although one may be not a pure devotee, but if he just does the activities of the pure devotee, then you are directly in connection with Kṛṣṇa and you start getting purified, right? So the whole point of love and seva, service, you cannot offer love and service to a formless thing, right? How can you offer bhoga to nothing? How can you dress nothing? Correct? So this concept of impersonalism is very illogical. And then another thing is that these paths, right? The impersonalistic path which is followed by the Gyanis and the personalistic path which is followed by the devotees. If you compare these paths also, Kṛṣṇa is very vocal about it. He says that this path is very difficult to follow. Now the difficulty is there is no help in this path. You just imagine, what does a Gyani do? Gyani meditates, right? And they have their eyes closed, they are meditating. Now if two Gyanis are sitting next to each other, they can't help each other. Yeah, think about it. If two jnanis who have to basically meditate on some impersonal thing, in their meditation, they cannot take help of each other. Right? One jnani will never know what the other person is doing, whether he is really, meditating, or whether he has gone to sleep, or whether he is in his shop, or whether he is at his home. What he is thinking, nobody knows. Right? So they cannot help each other, they cannot receive any help in this process. But in devotional service, right, when you are in the association of devotees, and it is all about association, correct? You can serve others, help others, and you can receive a lot of help, correct? Chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, in a group, and somebody dozes off, other devotee will say, "Oh Prabhu, please get up." Right? Because there is nothing to hide. There is activity, correct? So, the concept is, Om Shanti, 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 right? This is impersonalistic, they love this word, Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. But if you bring a pure devotee in front of them, what the pure devotee will say? Om Kranti, Kranti, Kranti. Right? In devotee's life, there is no Shanti. There is only Kranti. Why? Because Kranti means full of activity for Krishna. Right? And there is a word very close to Kranti in one of the verses. I'll chant that verse. Let me find that. No, Viplava. Viplava means, Visport, right? Or something, that is exploding. So, what is that verse? So, how it is not Shanti? Viplava, revolutionary. So, see, Kranti means revolution, right? It's a revolution. So, when a person is doing devotional service, he is doing a revolution against Maya. Right? It's a very revolutionary activity, right? When we compare, like when India was, under subjugation of Britishers, so uh, they would, the people who were trying to get free or get independent, they were called revolutionaries, right? That's what you call such people, revolutionaries. When we talk about, so many revolutions that have happened, the French Revolution. What is French Revolution? When the public went against the king, right? When they wanted to overthrow the king. So French Revolution, Russian Revolution, right? Then India Revolution, Quit India movement, right? So they are all revolutions. So what Srimad Bhagavatam is telling, right? Tad vag visargo janatagha viplava. Asmin prati shlokam abhadyavati api. Nanyanantasya yashonkitani yat shinvandi gayanti grinanti sadhava. So again, is saying that on the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, form, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord, is a different creation full of transcendental words directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Right? So, in bhakti, there is no shanti. Bhakti, there is revolution. Right? And that revolution is aimed towards purifying our existence, and then ultimately, with those purified senses, experience Krishna, serve Krishna, and serve as devotees. Right? So, in text number 24, then what these devotees are discussing, like they said, okay, first they said, okay, how the living entities are accepting Krishna is facilitating them, and then how Krishna is not formless, his form is experienced by great devotees, and then they are saying that how this Krishna, my dear friends, is that very personality of Godhead whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. No, it is he only who creates, maintains, and inhabits the material world and yet remains unaffected. Right? So Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is very clear. Ninth chapter, how he is within everything, but still without. He is there, but he is not there. So Krishna is doing everything, still he is not doing anything. Correct? So these opposites are resolved in Krishna's personality. So now they are talking about how Krishna's pastimes are very confidential and attractive. Now, Krishna, as we were discussing, Lord Krishna does things. One thing is that he likes, he enjoys, his pastimes. He likes to do. Of course, when we see, Krishna, whatever pastime he did, most of the pastimes are basically, to give pleasure to his devotees. He is not doing for himself. Even a pastime, the greatest, highest pastime of, the Ras Leela, the concept is not that Krishna wants to enjoy. Krishna is performing that pastime so that he gives pleasure to his devotees. Right? And that's what makes it very attractive. That here is the supreme person, but he is not thinking about his happiness. He is always eager to, offer happiness to his devotees. Right? Therefore, they are addressing like this. My dear friends, here is that very personality of Godhead. Personality of Godhead, whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of Vedic literature by his great devotees. Now, here it says that, they are described in the Vedic literature by his great devotees. But actually, all the Vedas, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, he is the author of all the Vedas, right? And what does the Vedas contain? The Vedas contains descriptions of Krishna's activities. And now these descriptions of Krishna's activities are sung by his great devotees. So, when you read Srimad Bhagavatam is a description about the activities of the Lord sung by Suta Goswami. How did Suta Goswami heard? When it was sung by Shukdev Goswami. Right? How did Shukdev Goswami knew? When it was sung by Vyasdev. How did Vyasdev knew? Because when Vyasdev was given that revelation by the Lord himself. And he himself is the Lord. Right? So if we analyze these pastimes of the Lord, the Srimad Bhagavatam and all, if you see the historical context, they were always narrated to devotees. They were always narrated to, sadhus or, liberated people. They were never narrated to, ordinary people. So it's a very interesting thing how Krishna's pastimes and all these computational topics, there was no sapta, done and, everybody was invited. Right? I mean, it is good, now it happens, but primarily it was discussed between, people of the same wavelength. So here, one important aspect is Krishna's pastimes, because creates pastimes, therefore there is Krishna Katha. If the Lord is formless or impersonal, without any activity, how can there be a discussion about him? Right? But because the fact that the Vedic literature is full of descriptions about Krishna's qualities, fame, form, that means that Krishna actually is a person. And because Krishna is a person and he can perform, superhuman, superlative, activities, therefore he also becomes all attractive. Right? Krishna means all attractive, and for a person to be all attractive, he cannot be impersonal. Correct? And his aspect of attractiveness can be perceived only by his katha. Unless a devotee hears Krishna katha, or unless we hear Krishna katha regularly, we will never be able to become attracted to Krishna. Right? We may go to the temple, we may do DT service, we may do, nice take the darshan of the deity is very attractive. But that's a very superficial level of attractiveness. Only by hearing about Krishna from sincere devotees, at the least, the best is when a pure devotee is speaking. When we hear regularly, then from within our heart, there is a whole thing that happens, right? Shinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana. So that whole process happens when we hear about Krishna from a pure devotee. And then Kapil Dev also is describing, in chapter number Canto 3, chapter 25, verse number 25. He tells a very beautiful verse. Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti ritkarna rasayana katha tadjoshanadashva tadjoshanadashva apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishati. Here the Lord is describing that how in the association of pure devotees, mama virya, my wonderful activities, samvida. Samvida means discussion. Now, typically, when we meet, I don't know what happens in Seattle. As devotees, we do very less samvad. Most of it is a lecture, right? Somebody is giving the class, everybody is hearing. But here the Lord is talking about samvad. Samvad means there are two people, they are equally contributing, right? It is a sum. So one aspect is they are equally contributing, or they have the same wavelength, correct? Samvad, talk between two equal people, right? So different, but the point is, it is an active discussion. It's not a passive one-way traffic. It is a two-way traffic. So the Lord is saying that when people discuss my wonderful activities, right? What happens is it acts as a rasa ayanaha. Now, people in chemistry, the chemicals are called rasaya, right? So rasa means a certain mellow, and ayan means something that carries that mellow. So what happens is Krishna's activities, the discussion of his activities, it acts as a very pleasing experience on what two things, Rit and Karna. They are pleasing to the heart and the ear. Now, we all were actually, hearing pastimes from Jagannath pastimes for Rang Prabhu. And you would understand that when a pastime is discussed about the Lord, like, he was talking about this, what was the name of that king? Ramdev or Haridev?
Purushottam.
No, Purushottam nahi, the previous.
Indrajumna.
Like he married a Muslim woman.
Oh yeah. Yesterday, right? Yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday. So I forgot.
I forgot.
Anyways, so when you hear that pastime, now it is so touching about the Lord that Krishna is coming out in the night, right? He's coming out straight and he's coming and embracing his devotee. Now, when you hear that, your heart will be melted by the compassion of the Lord, right? So the pastimes of the Lord, right? Where it acts as a pleasing thing on the heart. Now, what is the heart, right? If you think about it, the heart is a repository of feelings, correct? Sometimes even the intelligence is called as heart. Sometimes meanings they change. So when you hear a philosophy and you think, oh wow, I never thought about it, right? What a beautiful point. So your heart is actually getting melted. It is becoming more and more purified. And Krishna's the discussion about his activities or Krishna Kirtan is very pleasing to the ear also, correct? When you are doing Kirtan, like in Gaurang Prabhu's it was so pleasing. The instruments, the ragas, the 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 holy name itself, right? It is so pleasing. Now, if Krishna was impersonal, this thing will never happen, right? You will never have a discussion of, something that doesn't exist, something that doesn't see or hear or experience. It will be dry. Your heart and ears will be dry. But because Krishna is what Krishna is, the Supreme Personality of God, therefore, discussion about him acts as a pleasurable experience for the heart and ears. And when a person does this constantly, more than constantly, regularly, right, with a commitment. When we do it regularly, what happens is, see, the word is used as Joshana. Joshana means, cultivation actually. So in a cultivation, when you cultivate something, it is a very conscious thing you do, right? Because when the farmer is cultivating, he is very conscious what he is doing. He knows exactly, okay, this is where I need to dig. I need to make the, earth soft. Once the earth is soft, I need to dig. Then I need to plant the seeds. Then I need to water. I need to cover them up, right? So that is cultivation. It's a very conscious decision. So when somebody does a conscious endeavor to hear about Krishna, then what happens is he goes on the path of Apavarga. He starts walking on the path of Apavarga. Apavarga means liberation. So Srila Prabhupada, the Vedic literatures describe there is Pavarga. Pavarga means in our Varnamala, Ka, Kha, Ga, Ga, right? There is a line of Pa. Pa, Fa, Ba, Bha, Ma. Pa, Fa, Ba, Bha, Ma. So Pa is Parishram. Parishram means like living entity basically is, like foaming like ash. He's working. We won't into the details much because, our time is almost up. So Pa is Parishram. After Parishram, Pa, Fa. He is working so hard that actually the mouth starts, foaming. Like we have seen, in India, if you go, we don't see donkeys here, but in India, you have the, opulence of seeing donkeys. When they are working and they are, slogging in the heat, their mouth starts foaming. So Pa is Parishram, Fa is Fena, Pa, Fa, Ba. Ba means now, I have worked so much. Now, Bandhan. Bandhan means I will become attached to the fruit of whatever I worked for. It's very natural. Sometimes people work because there is bandhan. Right? Although you may not like to work, but because you are bound, H1 भी मेरा ये employer के पास है. I have to work even if I don't like. Right? So bandhan, there is bondage. Then pa, fa, ba, bha. Bha matlab bhay. Constant anxiety, constant fear. And then at the last, ma. Ma is mrityu. So every living entity in this world is actually in this pa varga. But by hearing about Krishna, right, in a conscious manner, what we do is we start walking in the opposite direction of Pavarga. So that is called Apavarga. Apavarga means liberation. You are liberated from all these things, right? And it doesn't stop there. You walk on the path of Apavarga, but Shraddha, you will get Shraddha, firm faith, Rati, attraction, and Bhakti, devotion to Krishna. And you get it in order. First you will get firm faith, then you will get attraction, and then you will get the final, pure devotion to Krishna you will get. Just by hearing about Krishna. That's the power of hearing. Therefore, in the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam is the first. Right? Shravana, Kirtanam, then Smaranam. If you Shravan, if you do nice Shravan, you can do nice Kirtan. And with the help of Shravan and Kirtan, you can remember Krishna. Right? So this is a beautiful, discussion between these ladies. So we'll end here, Prabhus. If there are comments or questions, we can take, or if the time is up, we can also close. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for a nice presentation.
I want to see everybody's face. Can everybody turn on their videos?
Devotees, if you don't mind, if you can turn on the videos. I used to ask in the beginning, and then I stopped asking about it, and then
No. In our organization, it is mandatory. If you are, how do you know that you are present? See, we just spoke about so much of on personal and impersonal. Like on a Zoom call, if your video is not on, that means you are follower of impersonal philosophy. Believe me, that's what it is. Hare Krishna. So we should not be impersonal. We have to be personal.
it would be much nicer to have video on. That way, you can see actually what is.
It should be mandated, because if the speaker is speaking and if he doesn't know what is the reaction, what is the emotion on the face, right? Then it. See, typically what happens, I'll tell you. Any speaker, he derives the energy to speak from the audience. So if the audience is black, then the speaker won't perform nicely. So for your own good, you should keep your videos on. Hare Krishna. It was a very pleasurable experience. I am a very unqualified person. You are all doing, you have already done your Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedant, I don't know what. But frankly, I have not even done Bhakti Shastri. So I don't have any kind of degree. I am very unqualified. But, Braj Kripa Prabhu, my friend and godbrother, it was his desire and instruction. So I said, okay, let me just follow what he is telling. So
your humility, thanks.
Sure,
You definitely have much more deeper realization, based on your own personal life and how you're leading. I can see who was with me the last few days, and I can see how he's very sattvic. Very, very wonderful example. That's why I felt like devotees should hear from you once. And you're here only for a few days. I was really inspired by his sattvic nature and friendship. He was there with me last 7 days. We opened the hearts, and it was a very good conversation. My family is not here, so it was only two of us. It was we were cooking together and spending time together. It was a very nice experience to be with a devotee, actually. And Prabhu is very, very humble. He said, he puts so many disqualifications, but actually he has much deeper Krishna consciousness and realization, as we can understand from his class today. He went on to speak at so much length about impersonal and personal relations. Anybody has any questions?
Is there any question or comment?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. There only can add 2 comments of what you said and what I liked. Example of Radha Govind Maharaj, the impersonalization, how he deals with it and how he says that there's no impersonation from the Muslim prayers. And also, I'm also relating the personalization of deity's experience that you talked about in the temple. The pujaris, this was a Ras Bihari, you said, the temple name of the temple, where the pujari was putting the pagadi on.
Yeah.
Yes, so I kind of mainly correlate those kind of examples in Vrindavan a lot.
That is Rasika Bihari temple.
Rasika Bihari.
Actually, same temple there is a very, if you want, I can tell. Actually, I want to tell. I'll tell because I
Oh,
really
yes,
like.
yes, please.
So the same pujari, when he became a little old, so see, when you become old, your body is not working properly. Your hands are trembling, right, etc., etc. So so one day this pujari was fanning the Lord. Now in India you get those fans like which have you split the coconut leaf into half, and then on the one side the leaf is there, and then you stitch the leaves.
Yeah.
So there is a handle, and then there is a fan, right? So we used to have fans like that. So he was actually fanning, and he was so sleepy, so he slept actually while fanning. So the handle of the fan, it hit the head of Krishna.
Oh, Kṛṣṇa.
So Krishna immediately slapped him. And Krishna slapped him so hard that there was, mark on his,
Yes.
So this devotee felt so bad. He was thinking, "Yaar, I have given my whole life." So actually, he told Krishna, "Krishna, I gave my whole life to you. I am the only person who is doing everything for you, and you couldn't tolerate one mistake. Okay, I did one mistake, and my condition was because I am serving you. Therefore, I was sleepy, and you didn't consider, and you slapped me. Okay, I am not going to serve you anymore." So he became very upset. He said, "Okay, you get somebody else. I am resigning from your service." So he actually left. He left and he went to sleep.
Oh, Kṛṣṇa.
So,
Wonderful.
so then what happened? The person who had installed these deities, his guru, Krishna actually inspired him to come. So he came and he saw the temple is closed, no arti is happening, and what is happening. He went inside and he saw that the pujari is sleeping. He said, "What are you doing?" So then he said, "This person, I have been serving him so many years. I did one mistake and he slapped me, and see what kind of slap he has given. So tight." So his guru said, "Arey, you are so fortunate."
You got it.
He said, "Okay, no, I don't understand all these things, but I'm not going to serve him." So then he said that, "Okay, now let's come and talk. Let's figure it out. Let's do the patch up." So he went, in front of the deities, the Acharya, and he said, "My dear Lord, have you slapped him? Did you slap him?" Well, Krishna says, "Yes, I slapped him." Well, "Why did you slap him?" So Krishna says, "Isko aata nahi hai karna. He doesn't know how to serve. He doesn't know how to put fan." So then, the Acharya said, "See, he is very, upset with you because you slapped him, and he wants to leave the service. So unless, you ask forgiveness, he will not continue." So then Krishna actually folded his hands and he asked forgiveness from the pujari. That, "Sorry, I slapped him." So then he again started serving. So I mean, this just the interaction, it's not that Krishna just likes to be glorified. That's the awe and reverence part. But beyond a certain, limit, then Krishna actually wants, to have a very,
Personal interaction.
very nice, free flowing, relationship. Of course, we should not jump. It's not, we cannot jump.
Correct. Amazing, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, all the devotees. Please pray for me that I am always protected.
Thank you for your time for us.
Keep me in your service. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
So there are still some Mayavadis in our group.
So must be, doing multitasking or something.
Probably they are not in front of the laptop.
They already
Oh, Haribol, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Okay, now you have become a person.
Chaitanya Sundar,
Okay.
what are you doing?
Who is Jax and Saravana, Sri Vidya, Saravana Prabhu, Sri Vidya Mataji.
Chandana Mataji, Sri Vidya Mataji.
Oh, one is just an iPhone. There is no name also. Anam. That is Anam.
Chaitanya
And
Sundar,
then,
the computer.
huh?
Jax Prabhu went for something.
I can understand. We also do that. Okay, Prabhus, very nice seeing all of you. Darshane pavitra karo hi tamar gun. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Srila
Thank you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhu. Thank you for the wonderful class.
Thank you so much.